I want to share with you something which you can find in detail in the Hebrew Techelet website, which was written by my friend and colleague, Ravi Dopechter. He asks the question, how is it that Yaakov manages to do something that his father and grandfather didn't do? And that was to keep the family all together. All 12 sons were, as we would say in English, on the derech. Whereas in his previous generations, Abraham had to send away Ishmael, and of course Yaakov and Esau did not go along the same path. And yet Yaakov managed to keep 12 of them all on the same path, which is quite remarkable, really, when you think about the interactions between those 12 brothers. The question is, how did he manage to do that? And I think the answer is given clearly in his final days. For his final day, Yaakov gathers round his children to give them words of preda, words of departure that he's going to say to them at the end of his life. And what would we say in that scenario? We would have our children round us at the end of our life, and we'd express our love for them. We'd say how much we were going to miss them and how much they've meant to us all our life. And we would urge them and encourage them to carry on in our way and to remember the ways of our fathers and our family, and to represent our family faithfully. And we would give them words of encouragement in that sort of way. But if we look at what Yaakov actually did, he didn't do that at all. He looked at each child individually, which is something he didn't do with Ephraim and Manasseh. In last week's Seder, in Ephraim and Manasseh, he gives them a bracha together. But with his children, each one gets his own words. Some of them don't really read so great. Some of them probably thought they were not really getting a bracha, but were getting a bit of a misha beirach. Reuven is told he's weak like water. Shimon and Levi are told that their anger is a curse and that they're going to be spread out in Israel. Dan is compared to a snake. Some of them are not all that pleasant. So it's a wonder, really. First of all, why did Yaakov do that? And secondly, is this something that is key to the family actually staying together? And I think that the idea here, and this is what Ravi Doe is talking about in his article, he says that what we see here is that Yaakov is looking at each child as an individual. He's not trying to make them all uniform. He's not trying to make everyone exactly the same. Everyone is different. And he, in some ways, he celebrates that difference by having them all together. On the other hand, not everything is acceptable. What Reuven did was not acceptable. Messing around with his father's sleeping arrangements at best, and having illicit relationships with his father's wife at worst is not an acceptable behavior. But he's still called the Bechor, Bechori Ata. He's not rejected. He's still called the firstborn, but he has to be told that that wasn't correct behavior. Shimon and Levi are not sent away. They're not chucked out. They're told that their extremism in what they did in Shechem was wrong, and their anger needs to be curbed. But they're going to be part of Israel. They're going to still be part of the family. They're going to be there within the fold. They're not thrown out. And each one of the brothers is given a message to do, is given a task to do, and they're all different. There's a famous joke that a parent says to their Jewish parent says to their child, well, when you grow up, you can be anything you want to be, as long as it's a doctor, lawyer, or an accountant. Thankfully, today, that isn't the case. But in my generation, that was certainly the case. That's what you were expected to do. And if you diverted from that, well, that wasn't really very good. And we've seen, haven't we, many times that when children, so-called, and I don't like this expression, go off the derech, that what happens is they're rejected from their families. Their families throw them out. I could go into numerous stories of people that I've come across in my life who have been in that situation, and it doesn't help. That's not the way to do it. What Yaakov is telling us by the way he gives his brachot is that each child must be celebrated for what they are and for what they can offer to the society and what they bring to society, because everybody has their own talents, everybody has their own personalities, and not everybody is the same. We don't accept every behavior, but we don't reject. Even somebody like Reuven, who did something really bad, is not rejected from the family. He's not even told that he's no longer the firstborn. He loses the Brachot and he loses the kingship to Yehuda. Yehuda himself was Vayered Yehuda. Yehuda went down when he married the daughter of the Canaanite. That wasn't a good thing. We know that from the previous generations. But nevertheless, he's given an opportunity and he stays in the family and he becomes the leader. So we see that the way Yaakov keeps his family together, and perhaps this is the reason why they stay together, is that there is no rejection. You don't have to be all exactly the same. We all have different ways of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in fact, when we come to the Kriyat Yam Suf, we read about Shnei Mesrei Gizrei Yam Suf, 12 different channels in the Yam Suf. Why was that? Well, they all had their different ways of getting to the other side. They had a different channel, but they were all going in the same direction. Different methods, but all going in the same direction, in the direction of the service of God. There is more than one way of skinning a rabbit. That's the expression. And what Yaakov was showing us by Parashat Vayechi is that no child should be rejected. Every child should be celebrated for what they can bring. They should be chastised for the things they do wrong, but they should never be rejected. Shabbat Shalom.